Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on the final Sinners in the System episode that's an hour long for Psychopaths. Oh my god! And it's been a week or two since I've watched episode 2. But I've really enjoyed the Psychopaths movie. I've enjoyed the 2 Psychopath Sinners in the System so far. I've really enjoyed this series altogether, but the feature length editions have been really, really fun. There has been so much fan service. So much fan service. The Ganoza glow up has been life changing. My skin has been cleared. My crops have been watered. I cannot tell you how excited I have been to be living in the Psychopaths universe right now. And is this coffee perhaps a little bit more adult than usual tonight? You better damn believe it is. Because I have a feeling. I was like, okay, we got a little bit of Ganoza in the first Sinner system. We got a little wee bit. We got Ganoza the glow up. We got the ponytail from the movie. And then last week we had Sugo, who I keep calling Shugo, but Sugo, who just exudes attractiveness and was just amazing. And we got Masayoka and Ionagi with him. Like, Kagari made an appearance. I'm like, what else can I ask for? What else can I ask for? So I've got a couple little comments to do before we start. But I'm super excited to round out the Sinners in the System, and I've been told that season 3 starts after this week. So I've also been told that season 3, the episodes are 45 minutes, so it's like the extended edition all over again, and I'm like, ah! So yeah, I've been told by the moderators, all I've been told is starting next week, there are 8 episodes of season 3, which... sad days, but they're 45 minutes each, so it's kind of like 16 episodes, so we'll go with that. It's like the extended edition, so womp womp, what it is. It's a weird number. 8 is a weird number, but 8's my lucky number, so I'm fine with it. And I've been told, don't worry, the moderators have told me when I can watch the OP and EDs. I've also been told for this one specifically, for this Sinners in the System, I cannot watch the OP. I've kind of accidentally watched the OPs for the last 2, and then I looked down their notes today. I was like, I shouldn't have watched those, but they weren't as spoilery as I thought they were going to be, but they kind of were. But so I'm not going to watch the OP for this one. When we go back and do the discussion, I'll go back through it and look at it then, and that'll be fine. But Sunspots was talking about how Psychopaths the movie was influenced by Apocalypse Now. I know enough about Apocalypse Now to definitely believe that. And Sinners in the System, the first episode, was influenced by the 2011 Fukushima disaster, where there were factors culturally and collectively dealt with compliance, reluctance to question authority, basically questioning whether Japan caused the disaster, and the government actually was like, ugh, and kind of had some very similar, like, Sybil System-esque theorizing going on with the government's involvement. So that's really interesting to me, especially the fact that the series was made after that incident and could very well be inspired by it. But basically, Kiyoshi Kurokasa led the inquiry by the NAICC and was the first quote-unquote independent investigation commissioned by the Japanese government. So that's really cool. That's so fascinating to me, that the actual real life events that inspire Psychopaths, and the fact that Psychopaths is inspiring technology and technological advances that we're seeing now years later. It's pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie. And then Anime Annie was talking about how, I keep forgetting this, and Anime Annie, in their infinite novelesque wisdom, keeps reminding me that throughout, I'm like, oh, well, this has happened in history. And Anime Annie keeps reminding that in this series, in Japan, they don't teach history anymore. So a lot of the things happening that Akane notices, that other characters notice, they've happened previously in history, but because it's not taught there in Japan now, none of the modern generations know about it. And that's such a smart writing decision, because one thing I get so frustrated with, especially in like fantasy series, is when very problematic tropes and things are brought up, and commenters will be like, oh, well, it's because it happened in the past. And I'm like, but this is a fictional series. You don't have to mirror history. You're making stuff up. And so it just drives me crazy. And so I do like that this series kind of takes advantage of that. And they're like, yeah, we're getting away with repeating these historical events because we've made it canon in the series that none of these people know history. And I'm like, work, make it happen. So I thought that was really interesting. And then also want to note that several people in the Discord were talking about in the second episode of Psychopath Sinners in the System. It does mention that Sugo, I kept saying that this was kind of a retcon last week, but they were like, oh, well, it says that, Sugo went to work for the Defense Department. And I was like, I guess that's the barge, but it kind of suggests in the subtitles that his form of rehabilitation was the next step after Sinners in the System episode 2. And if your rehabilitation because of your clouded hue is working on a barge building war machines, I'm like, in the Discord, I was like, does that really equate? And somebody was like, it is the Sybil system. And I was like, fair work. I'm all here on it. You know what? Mental health. You want to solve your mental health? Go make guns on a barge. That solves all the problems. So that makes sense. So it's not technically a retcon. It's just a creative workaround. But I really appreciate those comments. I haven't seen the comments entirely for episode 2 yet. So when we start season 3, I may have some extra ones in addition to talk about. But y'all, Romania has her coffee. Romania is excited to see what fresh fun Sinners in the System episode 3 is going to bring us. And plus, I'm like, as long as I get Ganoza in a ponytail, girl is set. Girl is fine. Girl will be on top of the moon. So we're not going to waste any more time. I'm super excited. I hope you all are as well. But we are going to start Psychopaths, Sinners in the System, and we are going to start episode 3 of that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Oh, man. So I love that the movie and the Sinners in the System series they all threaded together and all kind of tied in. And so we have this idea, and I'm going to try to position the mic where they can hear me here too. But basically this was all about a journey of Kogami, and we have the story Beyond Love and Hate. Beyond Love and Hate, which oddly enough, so a couple things. After I finished this reaction, I tried to find information about Beyond Love and Hate. Since it is a Japanese novel and it's not properly translated, there's not as much in on it. There were some Reddit threads, but I didn't want to get on the Reddit threads because I'm like, oh god, that seems like spoiler territory. But so I tried to find any other things about it and I couldn't find much. There is a 1951 movie called Beyond Love and Hate that it supposedly is adapted into. It sounds very much like the 1990s American movie The Fugitive, which I was like, a lot of the things that were in Beyond Love and Hate, the 1951 film, Japanese film, it sounded a lot like The Fugitive, which Western culture appropriating something from the East and transforming it into something of itself. I've never heard of that happening before, but but I was like, okay, so I can see the similarities there, but this concept of revenge, the idea of revenge and about how you have to move forward beyond it, right? And the thing about Kogami that has kind of been plaguing him the entire time is the whole thing with Mikishima. The idea that Mikishima caused him to kill someone, and of his own accord. Because here's kind of the thing about it. I think a lot of the discussion in Psychopaths deals with the idea of, well, he was killing people as an enforcer. And I'm like, yeah, but that's one, the Sybil system told him to. And two, the Dominator kind of takes a layer away from that killing. Whereas, you have the Derringer or whatever, the pistol, it's a little bit of a different story. But here, Mikishima was his choice. He chose to kill Mikishima, and ever since then, Mikishima has been spouting off philosophical jargon to him in his nightmares as a ghost ever since. So Mikishima has haunted him. It's the craziest thing, right? So we have the idea of Kogami here. Kogami basically inspired Akane, who draws from him, but he's also being haunted by Mikishima, right? Mikishima, who kind of ruined Akane's life, but also kind of likes Kogami, and she kind of likes him, and he kind of likes her. But I was like, I was talking in the Discord. I was like, basically, I was saying in there that Kogami can't get with Akane because of their professional barrier, which is stupid because Shion and Kunazuka, but whatever. Akane won't get with Kogami because he's off on another continent. And plus, Kogami also can't be with her because he's being plagued by Mikishima. Mikishima can't get with either of them because he's dead. So it's just a big old screwed up love triangle, right? And then over here you have Ganoza, who is like a brother to Kogami, but also is a subordinate of Kane, may develop feelings for Kane. I don't know. My whole, the triangle of shipping with Kogami is just, I had made peace. I had made peace with the fact that Kogami wasn't going to be in the story anymore. Before this episode started, I had made peace that the movie was the last time we were going to see him. And I was like, well, that was fun. That was some good fan service. He's gone on to better pastures. He's going to go help out the world, go on his world tour. I had made peace with that. And then this series was like, but don't you want him back? I was like, I do. My thing is, what is he going to do? It seems like, oh, what's her name? We're going to know if it's Francesca or Frederica here in a second. She's working with this certain group, and she's enlisting Kogami to help. She tried to enlist Sugo, and he said no. And she's like, fine, if I can't have a fighter pilot, then I'll just do the next best thing. And so Kogami is, and it seems like the idea is to take Sybil System down. Now, how that's going to work, I don't know. And that also begs the question of, is Akane going to get involved with this? What does she think about it? I think it could cause some interesting dissent because you have Mika, who doesn't know Kogami, Mika, who doesn't care about Kogami, who would be like, who cares? What? She is trying to defend the Sybil System because she's terrified of it. Akane defended the Sybil System because she believed it was the best option for justice. However, over the last several years, Akane has kind of come to realize the Sybil System is not really out for justice. The Sybil System is out for itself. And she's like, So that brings up this idea because we have Mika, who's going to be doing her best to defend the Sybil System because she thinks it's the only way right now and she's terrified that it will kill her. Then you have Akane, who will defend justice of the people. And whatever the best justice of the people is, that's what she's going to defend. Mika's going to defend the Sybil System because she believes that that's the only way to bring justice. Akane believes that justice has to come first, but it just depends on what brings that. And up until now, the Sybil System had been doing that. But if the Sybil System's only out for itself, Akane may be like, well, screw you all. Abs McGee over here is the one I'm going to follow after and whatever he's doing. So I don't know. But I think it's interesting the last few episodes we've kind of seen a lot of cracks in the Sybil System and how it's not perfect and how it can go awry very quickly. And Mika's very quick to defend it for her reasons. But Akane is just kind of like, Akane's like, man, I was going along with you, Sybil System, but you seem like you're maybe done with me, so I might be done with you. So if it's leading to like Akane and Ganoza and Kogami and Kunazuka working together against the Sybil System, I am ready. I don't know if my shipper heart is ready for that. And if you throw Sugo into the mix, I mean, and Mika's there too. I don't mind Mika. I like to give Mika a hard time, but I'm thinking of the group in my head, and you have Sugo that has the connections with Ganoza, and thus he's connected to Akane and the others. You have Kunazuka, who's connected to everybody, and then you have Kogami, and Mika is kind of the odd one out, and she's the one supporting the Sybil System, so I don't know how this is going to go down, but I'm super excited now. I'm glad Kogami's coming back. Ganoza's going to be pissed. Ganoza's going to be like, I thought we were done. Why have you come back? Why are you still here? I thought Akane was over this and over you, and now you've come back. Let a man get in here. Come on. I'm all about this. This episode was really, really well done, right? Really well done. I just love the visuals of this episode. It felt like a movie. It felt very similar to the movie. I loved like the red blood trickling through the rivers and the streams. And then it slowly, everything went from like black and white, red color block to being basically in all color. And this is having in November. And episode 2 of the Sinner System happened in February. So it's been like, 8 months since then. Interesting. And we have like this opening brawl scene. There were a lot of series that I felt referenced to in this. The scene in the opening bar with Garcia and Kogami felt very much like Trigun. Gave me Trigun vibes. I was living for it. But can we talk about this opening scene in Garcia? And the idea, he was sitting there with his whiskey and everything on his little laptop, his little Peace Corps, everything. And then the sheer like confrontation and meeting with Garcia and him, and just how like, can we talk about how homoerotic like Garcia and Kogami's first meeting was? And look, I've been reading some BL lately, so it could be because of that. But I was like, the looks and everything. Here's my thing. Do I think that Akane is heterosexual for Kogami or Kogani or Ganoza? Yes. Do I think Ganoza, I don't know. Ganoza seems like he's only into like Akane or Ionagi, that sort of thing. He's just now finished figuring his life out and having his glow up. Whatever. Kogami is our bisexual king. Kogami is the definition of bisexual struggle. He is just like guys are attracted to him, girls are attracted to them, except for the lesbians. Like, they're just like, it's just, Kogami is our bisexual king. And Makishima was down for the Madeleines and Kogami. Let's be real. So I was just kind of living the way they animated this entire opening sequence. And they made Kogami look a lot softer in this movie. I don't know if Studio IG had a reason for making him look a little softer. Maybe it was because he looked healthier. Maybe that was it. He didn't look so scroungy like he did in the movie. He looked like he was in a better place. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with it. I like their Fire Panda beer that they have. I want to go back through the opening now that we can look at it and kind of see if there's anything spoilery about it. Well, there was the main girl, and there was her. Oh man, there was shots of her with a gun and everything. That is a bit spoilery. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see that. I really liked the driver Teshering. I really liked him. He was a lot of fun. He reminded me of, if you've ever seen Independence Day, which is an American movie that came out in the 90s, he reminded me of Dennis Quaid's character, who was kind of just like this quirky side character that's just there. And then, spoilers from a movie from 1996, he comes back in like the last half and has a big part to play in helping them. And that's kind of what Teshering did. So I was like, okay, cool. But they talk about the Tibet Himalayan United Kingdom and how the UN has, in this future timeline, the UN has fallen apart and they're trying to reestablish peace negotiations. What I've really liked about the Psycho-Pass movie and the Sinners in the System, like the ones where they go outside of Japan to other countries, I love like the cultural representation that we see all these different groups of people from diverse cultures. It's really neat. We get to see like the fashion, it's definitely based on actual fashion in our current reality, I'm sure, based on like the flags, the cultural traditions, the spirituality of it. I've really enjoyed that about this series. And for a sci-fi series, these 3 movies, especially this one and the Psycho-Pass movie, have kind of just let you soak in the culture and soak in the spirituality of it and just kind of settle in. Like, it's been fast-paced enough to where the hour went by really quick. It didn't feel like we were dragging, but it also didn't feel like it was trying to cram too much in. Like, that your villain, it's kind of like a flavor of the week, villain of the week, because you've only got one film to cover the whole storyline. So it's not going to be like a crazy fleshed out villain. But I thought that Garcia was fleshed out enough. I was curious how the one guy, we'll talk about him, that the girl wanted revenge on, how fleshed out he was going to be. Because I'm like, you really only have time to flesh out one villain, if at all. And having more than one villain to worry about is a gamble in a 1 hour special, because it's like you don't want to get too many villains, too many cooks in the kitchen, then you can't focus and it becomes kind of disjointed. But that's not the case here. Garcia was a through thread throughout, and we got just enough about him to know his deal, know what he's doing, know why he's doing it. And then the other guy was just kind of a red herring villain, which we'll talk about that whole scene in the woods. That's probably my favorite scene in the whole film, despite all the Kogami fan service and the scenes with him. The climax was great, but my favorite scene is probably the scene in the forest with the girl and the gun. That's probably the best scene in the whole thing. But yeah, So they're driving along, and then of course Kogami can't go anywhere. Kogami is like a mixture of, let me be real. Kogami is a mixture of like three characters in anime that and Western culture that I've seen. He's Batman, he's Bruce Wayne, just without the money. He's Batman in the sense that he's a detective, and he's also kind of a vigilante. And he also has this like no killing clause, but he's already killed a man. So he's like, he's got the no killing clause. He has, which he doesn't live by in this one. So do that with what you will, but we'll talk about that. He's like Bruce Wayne in the sense that he's a detective and he's a vigilante and he has this like dark past, right? We don't know much about his mom. It gets hinted here and he's like, let's not talk about that. But Batman lost his mom. So same thing there. But there is that. He's like Tenma from Monster, in that he kind of just travels around helping people and then gets caught up in all this shit that he can't help, but he still wants to help people. So he's like Tenma from Monster. And then he's like Ash from Banana Fish, in that's the killing part. And the part of being in a gang and having a shady moral compass that's influenced by trauma. So he's like Ash Lynx, Tenma, Kenzo, and Bruce Wayne rolled into one. That is Kogami. And that is an amazing combination. So I just kind of love it, right? I do like that we tie back this whole rainy day story with the one guy, the driver. He starts the story out while he's peeing and it gets interrupted because of the bus. And then we go back to the very end and the punchline happens and Kogami's like, oh, that's what it was. Oh, okay. I'm just going to sit here and die now. I was like, so yeah, Kogami gets a sweet denim jacket. He saves the girl and all these people on a bus. It's amazing. Psycho-Pass, what has been interesting about it is that Psycho-Pass is a series. It never shies away from the violence or the gore, and it's always like used weaponry throughout. And I didn't think I would like a series like that because that's not kind of I'm not a big war movie person or anything like that. But Psycho-Pass manages to use it and make it work and doesn't feel like overly preachy or overwhelming. I kind of like that. I think it works really good. The CGI, like it's been in the other movie and other Sinners episodes, was good. I mean, the lighting and shading, like there's some angles of Kogami throughout this that I was like, oh hell yes, I love this. And he looks so good. I know why Garcia was all about him. Our little backpacking Kogami. He looks great. But yeah, so then the girl, we meet her, Teshing. She is really good. I like her character throughout this. At the beginning, she reminded me of like if Kogami and Akane had a child. But it's really more of like if Kogami and Mika had a child. So, no. But she is like Kogami and Mika's child more than Akane. But I really liked her character. I thought that the journey her character goes on was really good and how she was tempted and how once she wanted revenge. And the thing about it is in this series, it's understandable. Like, you get it. You get why she's like this. There's another character, Kogami also. We'll just do 4 characters for Kogami. It's Bruce Wayne. It is Tenma from Monster, Ash Lynx from Banana Fish, and Guts from Berserk. Those are the 4 characters that make up Kogami Shinya, basically. Especially by the end of this, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But what I liked about her character was that you get it. You get to see the flashback and her father die at the hands of this mercenary group. You absolutely see her home destroyed and in ruins and her life just completely ravaged. And you understand why she would want revenge. And in your heart, you're like, yeah, I get why you would do it. It makes sense. But I love that Kogami's like, you're going to regret it. And it seems like something you want, but you can't bring... They even say throughout the episode, they're like, you can't bring back the dead. So even if you shoot any of these people, it's not going to do anything but weigh as a burden on you. And nothing... What you do is not going to change the situation. It's just going to hurt you even more. And Kogami's like, I know from experience, right? I do love that she wants to call him sensei, and she like gets the correction with him. And I love that he says that it is, the Japanese phrase is, to see what is right and not do it is the worst cowardice. And that ties so perfectly with Kogami back in season 1, where he's like, this was what needs to go down. And that's why he hates the Sybil system so much. It's amazing that him and Akane, one thing I love about him and Akane's chemistry is that she believes that she's doing right by the people with her sense of justice, even if it's something that detriments herself. And Kogami's like, well, that's not right. And she's like, but this is my sense of justice. And I love that her and Kogami can have similar moral compasses, but have very different views of justice, but they still get along, debate, and compromise. I'm like, yes, please. Yes, please. I freaking love it. And she's like, I will fight to get revenge for my parents. And I like that Kogami doesn't tell her that she shouldn't ever do that. He doesn't tell her that she's wrong for thinking of it. He just tells her it's not worth it. I like that Kogami doesn't try to tell her that she's not warranted to want revenge. He's just like, it's not going to be what you think it is, and you're going to end up hating it, and it's not worth risking your life for. So yeah, I love the way that this just kind of embeds us into the culture, and we get to know her story about the uncle, Kinray, and her, and all them, and about revenge and everything. It's just a solid, straight story through and through, right? I was kind of hoping for a second that Kogami would stop smoking, that when he lost the cigarettes, that'd be the end of it, and he'd have to quit cold turkey and just chew on the beans to get the nicotine high. But no, Garcia is an enabler and gives him like 2 cartons of cigarettes, and it's like, come on now. Although, I'm so hyped to see him back in the series. I watch it be one of those things where Kogami comes back, but we don't see him for like 3/4 of season 3, and then he shows up at the end, and Akane and Genoza are like, what? I could see that. I also want to kind of praise the animation for making everything feel so lived in. Like the house that they're staying in, it feels like kind of lived in, a little grungy, a little dirty. Even when she's cleaning it, it has like a feel of this organic, just like substance to it, right? And he's like, once you shoot, you can never return to who you were before you killed someone. Mm-hmm. I think that's so interesting. My grandfather, he was actually in World War II. He was stationed outside of Iwo Jima. And I don't know everything that my grandfather did. He was a radio man. So he wasn't like on the front lines or anything. He did radio work. But I think he did kill someone. And when he came back from Japan, he never touched a gun again. Didn't touch one again. He became a pastor, actually. He became a priest. And a mailman. He became a mail delivery man and a priest, and he never touched a gun again after that. And so I think that to me shows the impact that being in that war had on him, and how he just didn't want to hurt anyone else again. I was like, and he kind of found spirituality after that, which is crazy, right? So, imagine that. But I like the idea of the story beyond love and hate and him teaching her. We got so much fan service in this film. And Psycho Pass is an equal opportunity fan service entity. They will give us fan service for Kogami. They will give us fan service for the girl. But it never feels sleazy. And it never feels like... It doesn't... It almost feels like, okay, hear me out. I know a lot of people give the series Free, Iwatobi Swim Club, a horrible reputation because they're like, it's all fan service. And I'm like, it is, but it's always done, even when it's done, obviously, there's still like a little tasteful charm to it that you're like, yeah, that's fan service, but it's fine. Nobody's getting hurt, right? There's nothing wrong with it. And it's done in a way that you're just like, yes, I find this all aesthetically pleasing and I'm happy about it. And that's all there is to it. It's not anything that's overtly creepy or weird or wrong. It feels right. And Psycho Pass knows how to do its fan service. But damn, the use of the color red in this series, in this episode, the use of the color red for the rivers, for the flashback, for even the tattoo that's on the one guy, Jean, his face, and then the blood and everything, like, it was all really, really well done. And Psycho Pass does not shy away from the gore at all, right? They can also draw Kogami in that black long sleeve shirt all day long. I will not complain. He looked good. The movie, he looked good in this, is great. But yeah, so then we have this woman. I'm all about her now. She shows up. She was such a badass. I loved her. And here she be in her like green trench coat, which I love. I love it. And she's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And so she's like, nice to meet you, Shinya Kogami. And he's like, you're like, are you a pursuer? I like that he says a pursuer. Like, am I going to have to kill you in front of this girl? Because you're like trying to take me in? And she's like, no. He's like, you're going to arrest me or kill me. And she's like, no, neither. I'm assistant officer of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan. Frederica. There we go. Yes, Frederica. Hello. I came to survey the abandoned people. So Frederica's pretty cool. I like her character a lot more in this. Um, what I like about her character is, one, she wasn't just oogling over Kogami the entire time. She wasn't really oogling over Sugo. If anything, Shion and Kunozuka will probably be asking her to join them in their affairs in the future, and I fully support that. But even if she isn't joining Kunozuka or Shion, I really like Frederica in the sense that she's very no nonsense. She's very funny. She's really nice. And she's not inherently trying to ruin my ships. So, any female character that's not ruining my ships and is passing the Bechdel test, I am all about. And she is doing that. So, kudos to her. I really like it. Also, she's a blonde, and that's not Kogami's type. So, it's either white hair or brown hair, and she is neither. So, get it, girl. But I like that she basically was there to recruit Kogami to bring him back from Japan. And at first he's like, no. And by the end of it, he's like, fine, I'll go back. I do agree with her. She's like, you're basically running in circles. She's telling Kogami, you are just running in circles. What are you accomplishing here? You're not getting anything done. People are still in danger. And you could be at least helping people that care about you if you come back to Japan. And Kogami's like, fine. He went on his world tour. And honestly, I think Kogami would go back to Japan sooner if he thought it was possible. But he thought that with the Sybil system, there was no way he could infiltrate and do that. And she's like, I got connections. I'm inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I can get you in. We can get you, covered. And the thing about it is, we've had season 2 to show us that the holo technology is really advanced. So Kogami could use holotech for all we know to kind of dodge the system. I mean, Kamui got away with it, so why couldn't Kogami? So, and then we find out, this is really interesting, the idea that the people that were shipped off to work outside of the country were people whose hues had been affected and the Sybil system just ejected. So I wanted to say it during the reaction, but there wasn't really time. The whole issue with Taejing was kind of giving me vibes of like Ganoza, where her dad had been kind of like his hue was clouded, or he was a potential latent criminal. And now it's like, would she do the same? I'm glad that the episode didn't focus mainly on that. This was mainly about Kogami and him conquering his inner demon Mikishima to decide to go back to Japan. But that was a very curious angle to bring up, that her dad had possibly a clouded hue. And she's like, well, if I have a good hue, what does that mean? And she's like, well, you can come back to Japan with me. And she's like, hell no, I don't want to do that. Which says a lot for the Sybil system. Anyway, so they decide to go to the supply units, and the people will starve if they don't. And Kogami's like, well, I'm going to go only if there's no killing. I like that Kogami's like, why do I get drug into everyone's problems? There were a lot of like red herring moments where like when they go down there, I like that Frederica is like, take my stuff and go. And of course, whenever the one girl was riding the motorcycle down the hill, which by the way, she exits that motorcycle in the most graceful fashion humanly possible. The most unrealistic thing in this movie besides the blue bra under the white shirt Frederica is able to pull off. But that was amazing. And it also, for some reason, made me think of the Digimon movie. I don't know. I was getting that reference too. But the scene here where they go down to fight at the warehouse and Kogami, like, there's the kid. It was giving me like Gabby vibes from Attack on Titan, where he was like, the kid was on the rail track and had the gun, and he's like, help me. And Kogami in that moment lets him go. And he just looks so good. Like, Kogami just has the best look on his face. I'm like, damn, kid, why would you? I was like, oh, Kogami looks so good there. And then that kid shoots him like in the shoulder. And I thought when he threw the gun away that the girl, Taejing, was going to like come out of the shadows and grab the gun and shoot the kid. And that was going to be like her killing someone. But I wasn't looking at the timer to realize we were not even halfway through the episode yet. But it makes sense that Frederica is the one that takes the shot, right? And he's like, they're a mercenary group led by Garcia. Interestingly enough, man, I tell you what, bald men in this series are apt for being villains. It happened with Sugo. It happens here. I'm like, damn. If you don't have hair, you are in trouble. But I can't say much because Mikishima had a beautiful set of pitch white hair. So what can we do? And then poor Kogami, like there is like the scene where she goes to hug him and he looks down at her covered in blood. Like there's some shots of Kogami in this that just look really crazy. And then here's the thing. The guy, Garcia, realizes who the girl is, that she's with Kogami. So when he throws the knife later and sees the gun and it all clicks, it's like, But yeah, I like Kogami getting in like the traditional like cultural wardrobe there. Them going. I also like that he asks if Frederica's going to stay in the house, and she's like, yeah, you have a spare room. Is there a problem? There's like no sexual chemistry between the two of them. I'm fine with this. She's not wrecking ships. I'm totally okay. But she's like, yeah, I don't need your permission. So yeah, Tinjing, that's her name, Tinjing. Yeah, they go there and to the capital there, and that's when he learns about the smoke burial and the idea of what they're doing and trying, and that Garcia is trying to, using the peace group, whose name is very generic, but I get it, is trying to use the peace group to kind of settle the disputes in the area, right? Which is interesting because we have this idea. So Frederica is with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so there's idea that outside of the civil system, we have the civil system that is the justice in Japan. Meanwhile, we have these peace treaties going on with groups in the outside world that are being led by these other groups. And the crazy thing is, I am certain it is mirroring history where you have groups that are not the greatest, but they're influencing peace. Like that line that Tinjing says, where she's like, even if the talks are fake, if peace still is the result of it. And that brings up a whole case of, you have this peace that's been fabricated, but if it exists, it's kind of like a civil system scenario, right? Where the civil system is creating this illusion of peace. But that's kind of the thing. The civil system creates an illusion of peace, but it's this micromanaged, self-controlled environment, whereas the peace treaties almost are bringing a reality of peace rather than an illusion of it. So there is a difference there. And it's going to be interesting to see, as we've focused on the outside world, outside of Japan and what they're doing during the civil system era. It's going to be interesting to see if that evolves while Kogami is in Japan and what ends up happening in season 3 with that. I don't know, y'all. I'm super excited, though. Super excited. And then Mikishima shows up, talking about being surrounded by evil spirits. Mikishima just can't let Kogami go. And what's interesting is it's all in Kogami's head. But I like that Mikishima is just like, you're surrounded by evil spirits. And he just shows up right beside him on the west side of this kingdom. They tear apart the hip bone when they bury the dead. And I wonder if that's just something that Kogami knows from traveling. And he's like, if the dead have attachments to this world, they'll belong to an evil spirit. And to avoid that, you have to break the bones. Which sounds like something Mikishima would be totally interested in knowing. So I like this idea that Mikishima's spirit, which is Kogami's inner thoughts, are suggesting that Kogami, because he can't let go of the past, and he has this attachment to Mikishima, he carries around that evil spirit with him, and that's why all these bad things are happening. And he's like, you long for revenge, and that keeps the evil spirit alive. But now that you've got revenge, you can't stay in Japan anymore. You're under the control of a dead man. Which I'm going to be interested to see if Kogami goes back to Japan, if he's able to finally let Mikishima go, or if it's going to stick with him, or if Akane is going to have a talk with Kogami being like, hey, you have the spirit of a dead man following you. I had your spirit guiding me. It's not so bad. And then it can be used. I want to hear Mind Palace discussions with Akane and Kogami in season 3. I'm not asking for much. I could ask for a lot with Psycho-Pass, but I'll be fine with it. And they're like, not everything involving the past is bad. Yep. And that's so true, right? So then, yeah, we go back to him cooking up. I love the idea of Kogami cooking up a storm. He's had to cook for himself all these years. I like that. Akane just orders a pre-made meal. I respect the girl, but I need Kogami making her a dish in season 3. I have so many expectations for season 3 now. They're not going to happen, all of my thoughts. They're all just like a wish list. But if one of them happens on my wish list, I will talk about my wish list next week. I will be over the moon, let me tell you. But yeah, so we have the idea. We have Teshering that was following Garcia around. I love how everyone just, the cultural like designs of the outfits, of the garments. It's so diverse. I love it. And the fact of Garcia trying to bring these countries together. But the Purple Dragon clan just wouldn't listen, so they had to go. Imagine that. I like the scene with Frederica, where she's got her like doing the bathing scene where she talks to Tejing and tells her about Kogami and about the revenge that he was seeking. And I thought she phrased it pretty well enough, right? And I like that she like praises Kogami's cooking. It's great. But then, man, that scene out there where Kogami's with the dog was really good. And then at the end there when he goes out and is smoking and meets Frederica outside, that whole scene, the way that it was shot, the angle of like Teshing going behind him and is like the reflection in the window, the moonlight. Oh, it was all so good. He's like, you're going in circles. You can't see the place that you should be, the distance, and you distance yourself and run away from others. Which is exactly true. All Kogami has done is run away because he doesn't want to, hurt the people that he cares about. But it's like, he also wants them to forget about him because he thinks they're better off without him. And she's like, bitch, you know better. You need to be around him. Let's be real. But then Tejing, he's like, these kids, I don't want these kids to end up like me. I've thought about this. The flower goes back to its roots and her birds return to their old nest. If I return to Japan, won't I be killed? And I love that as they're having this conversation, she has the gun in the air. Like, just that was setting up for the scene in the forest. So good. So then Frederica tells him, oh, be killed. She's like, as he puts out the fire in the thing there, she's like, the situation may change soon. So they're planning something. Something's going on with Sybil System. And she's like, I need a dream team. You look like you'll work for the job. I feel like she's also not too concerned about Sugo not joining now because she's been to the division and she knows that Akane's got everything under order. So she's probably like, I can still go back to the division and ask for help and we'll be fine. And so what does he say there? He like talks about, she does like a little psychological review because she knows Saiga. I love that she knows Saiga. That like is another cool point towards Frederica. I'm like, yes, please. You know Saiga. She's like, you're a heavy smoker. And he's like, I have excessive loneliness. And Kogami saying that he has excessive loneliness made me want to give him a hug. Made me only want to ship him and Akane, anyone with him, more. Because I'm like, Kogami deserves a hug and some love. A threesome with Kogami and Ginoza and Akane, I don't think that's out of the question. Anyway, but she's like, humans communicate in ways beyond language. And she tries to like evaluate his mom. And he's like, she even tries to like guilt trip him about leaving his mom behind in Japan. And he's like, bitch, you don't know me. He's like, what? She's like, I'm a former student of Professor Saiga, which means her psychopath was likely clouded too. Because everybody Saiga's talked to has had a clouded psychopath except Akane. So that's interesting as well. But anyway, so we have the one purple dragon leader getting blown up. And she says, I worked as an assistant until recently for the Criminal Investigation Division. Okay, so that was talking about in episode 2 with Sugo. She did stay there for a stint to work with the investigation division. Uh-huh. And he's like, really? You don't say. She's like, I transferred from Foreign Affairs to the Public Safety Bureau. And he's like, oh, that old chestnut. They were beyond excellent. There was unusual teamwork between the enforcers and inspectors. And Kogami instantly knows what it is. And I love that he attributes it. She's like, I felt the strength of the unique people as I passed by. And what does he say there? He's like, she praises the division, right? And Kogami's like, oh, well, that's Akane's influence. I'm like, the fact that he gives her all the credit, it ain't Ganoza, it ain't Mika, it ain't Kunozuka, it is the influence of Akane. I was like, bitch, are you for real? And the way he just looks fondly back at her, oh, he's like, I wonder if her personality is what attracts good detectives. I'm like, you shut your face. I'm like, the shipping is off the charts. Oh, yeah. And of course he's like, well, I can't stay there because I'm not a good detective. And I'm like, oh, quit being that way, you big goofball. And she's like, oh, everybody's doing great. Everyone's fine. And he's like, well, that's good to hear. And she's like, they're not going to be fine when we go back to Japan, but they're fine now. He's like, maybe they're already trying to forget about me. And she's like, why would you think that? She's like, that one girl you were talking about thinks about you all the time. She's like, do you desire them to forget about you? I feel like Kogami believes that he's just a burden to them. And she's like, that's stupid. She's like, why would you want everybody to forget about you? It won't be easier that way. I do love the next day when he goes to the zone. And I get he needs to wear the hat to show that he's with the uncle. But he has this like civilian outfit on. And then that little hat is just perched perfectly on his head. It's like, why not? It's really funny. But yeah, she goes back to get the gun from home while he's there. And meanwhile, Garcia just casually slides up and is like, hey, we're working on trying to become like the former UN, you know. We might be doing some shady stuff under the table, but we're getting these peace talks in line. Just trying to like sell himself even more to Kogami as they like have a smoke break together. I swear, all these villains, they're either directly attracted to Ganoza or Kogami. Like Rodion in the first Sinner system was like all about Ganoza. Last week it was Sugo. He was getting all the love. And then this week it's like Kogami, whether it's Makishima or Garcia. I'm like, or the one guy from the movie. Oh, what's his name? He was the one guy that had the book that wrote on the book and did the cardinal sin. Oh, what was his name? Crap, I can't remember it. But yeah, he was into Kogami too. Can you blame them? But yeah, he's like, I was merciful to the gorillas and I almost died. And dead people don't come back. I feel like that's all we talk about influence. Kogami had his taste of revenge and was like turned off from it. But Garcia seems to be like, yeah, I've learned the hard way that sometimes if you're going to go down this path, this is the row you got to hoe. And he leans into it. It's just he made the mistake of going after the little girl that Kogami had come to know and love. So, you know. And he's like, I'm going to lead a conflict to the solution. And I think also what drove Kogami was the fact that this guy was not only solving the problems, but he created the problems he was solving. So it's like, yeah, buddy, you gotta go. He was a good actor, though. Garcia was like, he acted the hell through that conversation, not letting it known that he was having a hand in everything. He did a good job with that, for sure. And then, yeah, she goes off, sees the kid, talks about revenge, and then we see Jean. I'm just gonna say, I kind of freaked out with Jean in the reaction because there is in the sports anime Kuroko's Basketball, there's a movie. Not in the actual series, in the movie, there's a character named Nash. This guy looks exactly like him. Like face tattoo, blonde hair, kind of a dick, like just exactly like him. And I was like, what? I mean, I was floored. I thought his hair was like silver when we first started the episode, but then he's like blonde. And he does the eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing was really clever to like tune her into that was him. And then like she follows him up there to where they're meeting to talk about what's going on, to have their little talk and to do all that. And what I love about this scene is that she has we go through her past in that moment and see her home and family destroyed. And they juxtapose all of this trauma and horrific imagery with her like in the serene daylight reading the book about a man who couldn't get revenge and it wasn't a bad thing. And she has the option of shooting. She could have done it, but she doesn't. In the end, she makes the choice to not be into revenge and to do what Kogami told her. And the thing about it was, if she had shot, she would not have hit them. Girl, that gun was going all over the place, and the recoil of it she wouldn't have been prepared for because Kogami hadn't taught her anything about that. So, one, she would have missed. Two, at that point, Garcia would not have killed the one guy, and instead they would have gone after her, and she probably would have died because the one guy probably would have killed her. So, her making the active choice not to shoot, it did save her life. Now, the moral of the story is don't make a sound. And she probably could have gotten away. But she made the sound drop the gun, and that's what made the guy throw the knife at her. But I also couldn't believe that the one guy broke his neck. Like, that part was insane, that Garcia broke Jean's neck. But then, yeah, he threw the knife and then was like, crap, there's the gun that's Kogami's. And I can't believe she got just stabbed in the side. Oh. I'm glad she lives, though, because I was really worried that she wasn't going to live or that she was going to die and Kogami was going to find her dead body and then go crazy. But she not only lives to see another day and kind of learns about the value of not getting revenge, but here's the thing. Kogami, he kind of, I threw guts in the mix there because Kogami is like Bruce Wayne, like Batman with the vigilante detective. He's like Ash Lynx in that he's got kind of the tramp about him, and he's got like, you know, he's not afraid to kill someone, even though he doesn't want to. He doesn't want anybody else to kill. And then he's kind of also like Tenma in that he goes around and every time he encounters people, he tries to save them. But then he's also like Guts in that he is blamed and scapegoated for everything and suffers. So it's like, because yeah, they instantly, of course, throw the assassination on him. And the worst part is that Kogami had been involved. Kogami getting blamed by being involved in this assassination of a man that was leading the peace talks that were driving these countries together was making it to where Kogami could no longer do what he'd been doing on the run because now he's wanted outside of Japan. And it's like, well, if you can't beat him, he's like, if I can't go around and save people outside Japan, I might as well go back to Japan and save the people within it. I had my fun. I did my world tour, and now I can go back and do what needs to be done there. I'm like, yes. But man, the only thing that I was just like, she didn't go to a hospital, but they do eventually get her there, so that kind of solved up that. But I'm glad that she's able to talk to them and convince them, you know, to keep the peace talks going. And that little moment where Kogami like grabs her hand and holds it, that part, and like puts his hand on her forehead, that part is so sweet where he like just leans down to say that what she did was right. Oh my God. I really liked it. I'd say that this one here, this was action-packed, not as much as the movie. Obviously, it was half the length. And it wasn't like a non-stop like action and things going on like an investigation like the first Sinner System was. It wasn't a flashback like the second. But this definitely had some really good emotional beats into it. And then I love that the driver like stays on their side and helps them and Frederica. I love it. I love that they have this like technology they're able to use against the train. And then that whole scene where Kogami is like talking about hunting down Garcia and the driver's like, "You're terrifying." I'm like, yeah, because Kogami is literally a bloodhound. Like he has decided that he's going to kill Garcia and nothing's going to stop him. And he just gets this glint in his eye. It's what makes him very much like Mikishima in that moment. And it is terrifying. So yeah, he goes after him. A Crazy Train by Black Sabbath should be playing. And then I like that Frederica offers up the deal. She's like, look, if you help take down Garcia and everything, I'll help you get back to Japan. You help me out. And I like the Kogami's like, if you help me take care of Garcia, I'll do whatever you want. And she's like, deal. They also share like a little indirect kiss, but they're platonic besties. I'm totally fine with it. And then, yeah, I like that they have this paper in English, of all things, where they say from conflict to peace, a historical recollection, the terms that led the negotiation to success. It says the high cost of establishing the Alliance Kingdom. So the conflict of the three tribes coming to an end, the role of peace monitoring group, reconstructing the Tibet Himalaya Alliance Kingdom. And all of this is open trenches onto an open conflict, the way to peace. Like, all of this is in English. Like, I could probably go back and read all of this in English, but I need like to zoom in on it and read the whole article, and it was probably going to be like different words or just repeats of words, but interesting that's all in English. And so tomorrow the peace group is going to leave the capital. How convenient. And they're on the move. And I do love that Teshering, the driver, is like, hey, can we do this without killing our men? And he's like, sure, that's the plan. Of course, they end up like blowing up the train. And so I don't know if that really goes to fruition. They're like, sure, we're just going to, that's the plan. We're not going to kill all of them. And then they end up blowing up the train. So I'm like, did that end up working? So we have, right before they do this, we have one more moment where Kogami is outside, like, in the moonlight, contemplating like what he's about to do. And I love that Mikishima, he just kind of like saunters down the rocks in his little white suede shoes and his damn floodwater pants. I was like, I just love the idea that if you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z Abridged, there is Vegeta, who's one of the characters, and he's haunted by the ghost of Nappa. Mikishima is Kogami's ghost of Nappa that just haunts him. And he's like, oh, for the people of this country, dying is only part of the cycle of death and rebirth. I'm just waiting for Kogami to be like, will you shut up with your bullshit? Quit saying cryptic things, cryptic generalizations. Shut up. In Christianity, death is atonement for sin. I like that Kogami's like, will you leave me alone with your mystic psychobabble? And he's like, perhaps you think you're the evil spirit. Not even realizing you're already dead. I'm like, I like Kogami's like, be gone, foul wench. Yep. Wandering this world, falling even deeper into the hell of a battlefield. And he's like, no, I'm not going to be like that. Nope. He's like, bitch, I'm going to go back. So then, yeah. So they're all in there ready to go. And then I'm just like, they totally blew up that car. Like, what can't we do? Interesting. I mean, I guess they tried. They tried for Teshering, but Teshering's the one that blew the bazooka, so I'm curious. I feel like maybe they got the other guys out of there, and that's what Teshering was referring to. They got his men out. I guess so, but it wouldn't be a Psycho-Pass finale without a knife fight. So, of course, Garcia and Kogami have to have the knife fight past the crates and everything. I thought the climax was well done. I thought it was pretty tense. And here's the thing. I kind of suspected that Kogami was going to live because I was like, okay, Frederick has established the deal for Kogami to go back to Japan. He's probably going to live. But, you know, at this point, I didn't know for sure. I was like, he might die. That would suck. But maybe they'll both die. I don't know. Or they'll fall off the train and then Kogami will be like alive at the end because bitch has 9 lives. But there was a little bit of suspense because I was like, oh, I don't know. Kogami is kind of one of those characters where he is expendable. Like, I have a feeling the show could kill him off in front of Akane and Ganoza, and it could happen, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, no, he's been established to be this character that everybody kind of gravitates towards, and now that he's going back to Japan, my fear is that either he's going to have to witness somebody close to him dying, I hope it's not Ganoza or Akane, please no, or Akane and Ganoza are going to witness him dying, and that's going to be like the straw that breaks the back, right, for Akane. But I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, and I'm open to both scenarios happening. I'm opening to none of them happening. I don't know what the 3rd season's going to be like. But yeah, man, they did not also pull punches for making Kogami look. They did the fan service early on so that when they got to the point where his face was like puffed up and bruised and swollen, it was like, well, you had your fun. You had your good Kogami picks. Now you got to deal with this. But I felt for him. Like the punches in this episode, they had weight to them. They felt real. They were like, bam, they hit and had like a presence to it. And I was like, ooh. And then at the end, when he's just sitting there listening to Teshering's joke, and he's like, bitch, I just got beat up. What are we doing? But Stone Cold killed. Straight up, he's like, I'm return the knife that you left in Tenzing's body. Like, he straight up stabbed Garcia in the neck. I didn't think Kogami was going to kill him. I thought he was going to, like, wound him. But no, he killed him. And then the thing about it was, like, the train ends up blowing up right after that, so he was gonna die anyway. But that was an act of Kogami being like, I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the villain. And that's kind of the cool thing about Kogami is, like, Ganoza, even through his glow up and going through his, like, bad boy phase, he's still not only a protagonist, but he's still a good guy. He's like a gray good guy because he's a latent criminal, but he's still part of the good guy team, right? Same with Kane. She's like lawful good, right? And I feel like Ginoza's lawful good as well. But it's crazy because Kogami is literally lawful neutral. He is not afraid to kill someone if it's within the sense of justice, and he does not shy away from adding on to his sins. And Akane would be sitting there going, what are you doing, fool? And he'd be like, I'm being Kogami. So it's like, I do appreciate that Garcia brings up during their battle. The one thing Garcia said that I was like, oh, that's a really good line, is he talks about how Kogami has no idea what it's like to have to feed others. He's like, I did the things I did, not just for my own personal gain, but because I have other people that I'm worried about. And I had to watch their backs, and that drove what I did. Now, whether that's true or not, or whether it's justifiable, is definitely debatable. But I do like that he kind of touches on the fact that Kogami has always been a lone wolf. Even as an enforcer, he kind of went off and did his own thing. And so Frederica establishes in this episode that the division has this great sense of teamwork and camaraderie. They're all a fine oiled machine getting along great together. And Kogami being reintroduced back into the setup, he is like a lone wolf. He's a lone bloodhound. So he's not loyal to anybody but himself in a sense of justice. Although Akane, he might make an exception. I'm going to be curious to see if he gets introduced back into the mix, what that dynamic is going to be like now that Garcia has mentioned that, right? That's going to be really interesting to go back to it and look over. But yeah. And so then, yeah, at the end, he gets the story from Teshering. It's hilarious. The idea that the man was like, I'm dancing in the rain because I pissed on myself and I wanted to make sure that I got wet to cover it all up. And I like that Kogami just falls back. He's like, that's it. That's all we get. And then Frederica, what does she say there? There's something that says 01 or like an image. She's like, we're going to withdraw. Okay. And so then, yeah, they blame Kogami for the death, so he has to leave the country. But Teshing is gonna be okay in the end. Teshering was talking to him at the very end on the phone, covering everything up. And then Frederica's like, we have to evolve and grow. So you may think that you've not changed. You may think that you're not, worth redemption, but you could come back to Japan and help me. We have to settle the past. And I love that. I love the idea that Kogami's like, yeah, you're right. We do need to settle the past. I need to settle my score with Mikishima once and for all in my soul. And he's like, I hate the civil system. I don't like it. I'm not about it. So me going back to Japan and going back into that system, he's like, she's like, so you also hate the people who live under the civil system. And he's like, no, it's not what I said. And she's like, well, you still have people to save and things to do. So are you really okay with this? And he's like, well, nope, I got to settle things in the past. And if saving people means going back to the civil system and saving them from it, sure. I love it. Let's go back to Japan. Ah, yeah. And you know what? I'm glad about this. I'm glad that Kogami went out, saw the world, did his world tour, came to some conclusions about himself, and now he's ready to go back and do the damn thing. I'm ready. I'm ready for this to happen. He's tired of Mikishima's book club. He's ready to go settle it. Oh my God. I'm so ready. Yeah. So next week, believe it or not, is going to be a 45-minute episode starting season 3. Hello, Extended Edition Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm ready for that. I'm going to try to look at some comments before then, but I'm really excited to dive in and see what it's going to be about. It's going to be a fun time, and I can't wait. So, in the meantime, this episode was so good. It was wonderful. Fan service, Kogami, shipping, going back to Japan, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear your comments down below. But in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Psycho-Pass. Season 3! Let's go, bitches. Bye.